Should Alaska cruises stop in Canada? That's becoming a real concern for cruise leaders in the Great White North. And look, we got to give credit where credit is due. Let's talk about Seattle, finishing off the Alaska cruise season strong and what to expect for next year. Cruise news. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Lido, Loca. I'm your host, Tony, here to give you my commentary on the cruise news. Well, today it's going to be about Alaska. It's going to be about the quandary that the Canadian cruise business has when it comes to Alaska in 2022. We're going to have a conversation. We're going to answer the simple question, should Alaska cruises skip Canada? Now let's build up the story a little bit. You know the challenges we've gone through this year, restarting cruising from the United States. We didn't think we were going to have an Alaska season, but the lawmakers in Alaska pushed really hard to get an exemption to the Passenger Vessel Services Act. The Passenger Vessel Services Act is an American business protection law that was put in place back in the 1800s to prevent foreign vessels from taking away American business. The way that could be working today, imagine there's a ferry down there in Florida, where I live, down here in Florida, as it were, that will take you from, I think, Fort Myers to Miami. That's an American-based ferry. Well, to prevent some foreign company coming in and undercutting that ferry business, the Passenger Vessel Services Act says that any foreign flagged ship, any foreign built ship, any foreign ship that is made up of foreign sailors, if you want to do business in the United States, if you want to sail out of a U.S. port and back to a U.S. port, you have to go to a foreign port to do that. That's the big rub when it comes to the Passenger Vessel Services Act, and it makes it tough for the cruise business because they're foreign flagged, foreign built, foreign staffed, and if they want to go from Seattle, Washington up to Alaska, well, they can't do it without stopping in a foreign port somewhere along the way, and normally that foreign port has been in the land of Canada. Well, again, lawmakers worked on it so that there would be some sort of Alaska season, and they got an exemption to the Passenger Vessel Services Act that ends really before the next Alaska season begins. So you would think that everything's hunky-dory, as my dad used to say. Everything is hunky-dory, that it wouldn't be any problem at all, that next year we would just see cruises going from Seattle, making a stop in Canada, and then going up to Alaska. However, those same Alaska lawmakers, they're continuing to push to not be dependent on going to a foreign country. Look, no shade against Canada, but those American lawmakers, those Alaskan lawmakers are like, wow, we've got a really challenged rule that doesn't really benefit Alaska. Maybe we can get a permanent exemption for cruising for the Passenger Vessel Services Act, and then that way it doesn't matter what happens anywhere else. We can still get cruise tourism to Alaska from a U.S. port like Seattle, and that's good. That's good for Alaska. That's good for U.S. based cruising, but it could be a challenge for Canada, and cruise leaders in Canada, they're raising their hand with their own government going, look, we understand that we were closed down. It's a tumultuous time. The world's gone sideways. But man, have we hurt ourselves when it comes to not making an accommodation for U.S. cruising at a time when they needed an accommodation? Because the U.S. did ask. They did ask Canada, hey, is there something that we could do so that we can get around this U.S. law? And Canada was like, yeah, we're taking the hard stance. We're keeping closed down. And again, Canada, sovereign nation, doing what's best for their people. But now there's a little bit of a challenge. Now, I don't see this as a vindictive thing, like, oh, you didn't let us use your water, so we may skip Canada ports. But I do understand both sides. I do understand the lawmakers in Alaska trying to protect Alaska tourism, and I do understand cruise leaders in Canada saying, come on, Canada government, let's make sure that we have a good relationship with Alaska, U.S. cruising, so that we don't lose out on big tourism next year. It's an interesting question. Now, I went to Alaska this year under that exemption for the Passenger Vessel Services Act. I don't know what it's like to stop in Canada. That's the first question I'm going to throw at you guys. Is Alaska cruising enhanced, by a stop in Canada? Should cruise lines stop in Canada, or should cruise lines just go on up to Alaska and have a good time in Alaska? This won't affect Canadian cruises out of like Vancouver, that kind of thing. We're not talking about that. It won't affect going up on the East Coast, going to Canada for those fall cruises. But this is really a conversation about how does Alaska protect their tourism, and is it going to go so far that Canada might be excluded from Alaska cruises? Should they be? That's the question that we're talking about here. But look, before you go make that comment, there is a little more to discuss. Seattle, how did she do with the cruise restart? Is she one of our heroes? There's some great numbers coming out of Seattle. I got to tell you about that. Give some honor to Seattle. But first, let me invite you to subscribe. If you like staying up to date with everything that's going on in the cruise news and cruising in general, please consider subscribing with the notification bell on. That way you don't miss out on any of these episodes. Thank you in advance. So it's over. Seattle is done for the year. The Norwegian Encore, the last ship to leave out of the waters there, leaving Pier 66. Man, I was super impressed with Seattle. I wish I had more time in Seattle. That waterfront area is amazing. That's a town I need to revisit. But here's the tell of the tape. Here's the numbers for Seattle. They put out a press release. The season, they hosted 82 cruise ships and did approximately 229,000 passengers. All those passengers made their way through Seattle up to Alaska between July and October. And again, this was a season that looked like it was going to be scrapped. It looked like another year for no revenue for Alaska tourism. It looked like another year of really no cruise revenue there in the port of Seattle. And they spun it up. They got it done. And they're expecting, of course, a lot more people next year. So kudos to Seattle. She's going to go dormant for a bit until the Alaska cruise season comes back. But as we look back and retell the story of the cruise restart in the U.S. 2021, Seattle played a huge role. A huge role. All right, so let's move away from Alaska and Seattle. Let's get a little closer to home. Less than a week from heading over to Port Canaveral to jump on the Carnival Mardi Gras with my lovely shipmate Jenny. We're looking forward to seeing Carnival's newest, biggest ship. We're looking forward to seeing how they do the zone implementation, very reminiscent in my mind to the neighborhood from Royal Caribbean's Oasis class ships. And there's been a lot of people that have been on these ships, and so just wanted to throw it out there. Is there anything particular you would like to see about the Mardi Gras? Anything that you'd like to see through the Tony and Jenny lens when it comes to looking at the Mardi Gras? Just share that with us in the comments. I also want to take a moment to answer a question from the comments about the EMED home test. What their usage are for. I tell you what, when you go into EMED, you have to select what you're using the test. The question specifically, thank you for showing us this. Can this be used for international flights also? In that EMED, there's a huge drop down of the things that you could be using the test for. I don't specifically remember if it is airlines, but these are legit antigen tests. So anywhere that you have to have an antigen test, I believe that their result would be accepted. But I'm certainly not the definitive answer on that. So if you have any question, any concern, reach out to EMED or Navica and just make sure. But I do believe I've seen flights in that drop down. And I don't know if you're saying international coming into the U.S. or leaving out of the U.S. I do believe that these EMED tests are focused primarily at U.S. citizens. Again, this would be great to verify with EMED. Thank you for that question and thank you for the comment. Now it's time for you guys to sound off in the comments. What do you think about today's show? Leave a comment below. Thank you so much for checking out the show today. Show your support by hitting the like button and go watch this video next. Don Terrace and myself in Alaska. This is Tony with Lido, Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.